It's the 13th of May, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. This weekend, the deep state went full force for this full moon as they were expecting visitors no later than Monday. And what is the real story behind Trump's $600 billion investment from Saudi Arabia? And the deep state had a hysterical meeting today as they failed to secure funding in a desperate world. We have all the inside information, and we are sharing all the details with the world in today's report. Well, welcome to the delayed May 12th, now May 13th report. I apologize for that. It's been pretty busy, as always, but hopefully we're nearing the end of this saga with the deep state, and that's my hope. You know, they're failing to understand they're not just against me and the team and humanity, kind of as a whole, and they feel that most of humanity is kind of defenseless against their work, so to speak. So. And they don't really see me. They look at me as well. She's going against us for sure. But they don't really understand that they're against billions amongst hundreds of billions of beings in the universe. And of course, in addition to those hundreds of billions of beings that are all members of the Universal Council, they're also against Source. So, there's that too. It's just one small group of humans against the entire, basically, omniverse at this point. And they're just trying desperately to stay above water. And it's becoming more and more obvious, not only in mainstream news, but also in this intelligence report and some things that other people are reporting as well. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of house cleaning here, just simply because it seems to have caused some confusion as to why we made certain decisions. So for those of you that have been looking at the internet and, you might have run across a YouTube channel by the name of Trond Stannis. I think that's how you say the last name. And this person did a report who's Kimberly, and then there's Kimberly said, and Kimberly this, and Kimberly that. And he apparently is talking to a group who he believes to be the keeper of the living records. Now, I don't have such a group because technically all organic beings are keepers of living records. And then, of course, Source is the ultimate keeper of living records. And that's fine. I don't know those people. And it sounds like, in the beginning, there was quite a bit of decent information that was coming from this channel. And, I recently, because of all of the hype, so to speak, I started kind of listening to some of the reports, and I don't technically agree with whomever the keeper of the living records are, and nor necessarily the stance. And I don't agree for a number of different reasons. Number one, we have consistently told all of you listening to this report that there is no such thing as a savior. There are no such things as beings that we should all look up to or glorify in any way. And, when we visit the Universal Council, as an example, we are just meeting with a group of peers. Do they have more information about certain things than we have, simply because they've been around longer? Yes. Do they and have they used more advanced technologies than we have been permitted to use as humans on Earth? Yes. Are they a wealth of knowledge and information on how to possibly help here? Yes. But nobody is infallible. And I, unless it's source itself that you're talking to, everyone else is kind of, subject. And what I mean by that is, I've had a lot of people on the one hand that I have run across in my day that it seemed very charming and very nice and, very allegedly helpful, until they're not. Now, I'm not saying everyone has been that way, but you can talk about a few years of experience and talking to Marduk constantly and meeting then in person. You could also talk about Enki and Enlil. I didn't know all the stories, and quite frankly, I don't really believe a lot of what I read on the internet anyway, because I just have always used my own discernment. The same goes for everything from whose alien races are, whose and what they look like and where they come from, all the way down to the latest diet fad. So, I've always used my inner discernment and of course, that connection and wisdom that comes only from source. So I do talk about my experiences a lot, and they are different than a lot of people have had. A lot of people, not all, and I'm not speaking of this person in particular, have regurgitated information that comes from, texts that they've read or internet articles and that kind of stuff. And, or they're fed information from former SSP workers and those types of things. So, and they're not all wrong. It's just that it's the same as if you and I were to meet a group of people and say there were 100 people in this group, and you and I were to walk into this room and have conversations with all of these people. You may or may not prefer to continue conversations with some of those people, and I may feel the same way about different people that may be in this room. And, it's all about who you vibe with, who your quote unquote tribe is, who you make friends with or who you become family with. And for everyone that is different, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we all have opinions of places we'd like to visit and places we would never want to go. And they're probably not the same for everybody. The key to life, I guess, and as far as surviving as a human on this planet, is to choose who you would like to be around and who you would like to talk to. And then if you can count the amount of real friends you have on one hand in your life, you've won. Because true friends, always have your back. They're always the people that are there for you in all the good times to celebrate your wins, without any kind of jealousy or animosity. And then they're there in the lowest times to hold you up when you need help, and you do the same for them. And there's been a lot of those folks, both human and otherwise, that I've met through the course of my years as well. Then with this particular channel, there was some information I felt that I should not be included in said report because I know, just like if you're standing in a room full of 100 humans, there are days where some of those humans might be the most angry, mean humans you've ever met, and other days where you meet that same person and they could be the greatest person that you just want to spend the rest of your life with. I mean, who knows? I mean, and those of you that are married understand what I'm talking about. But the point is that nobody is perfect all the time. And people's impressions of things that I've personally had experience with are not quite the same. And therefore, we asked that our name, my name, they didn't really say UNN or anything, but my name not be used in his reports. Now, after looking at a few reports that said like black magic and other things, and it just gave me a really bad vibration. I didn't like it. I didn't like what I felt. Then also, there was another experience that I had too recently, where a gentleman that I did an interview with probably a couple of years ago, and his name is Rob Potter. And Rob Potter, Tom keeps in touch with him. Tom Melville keeps in touch with him quite a bit. I hadn't spoken to him in a little while, but we've texted back and forth and stuff over, since the interview, and compared information and notes. And, and he has his own opinions and views on things, and other folks he talks to, and, I have mine. But that doesn't mean we don't, have nice communications. So came to my attention that he had passed away. So I asked Tom, because Tom knows Rob's son, and to have a conversation with his son and find out a little bit more. Now, Tom had just talked to him a day or two before, and he had told Tom, Rob told Tom, that he had just gotten in touch with this person that owns that channel, and they were exchanging information and having all these talks, and they were going to do an interview and all of this. And this was on Saturday, and just a day or so later, Rob was found dead. Now, Rob was not sick. His son actually is the one that found him, and they were pretty shocked. And we don't know what exactly happened there, but I don't know. Given the vibe that I had just from some of the videos, I just don't really want to be a part of it. And of course, the choice for you to enjoy the information or not enjoy the information is up to you. But I also have my own personal sovereign right and my own choice to make sure that this person does not use my name in his reports anymore. I do that for my own feelings on this, number one. And I'm also doing it because I don't know this person. This person has never tried to reach out to me. This person has never reached out and asked my permission for anything. And I didn't really appreciate that. Now, I am aware that there was a video that said why he's taking everything down. And he said that he wished that I didn't, or someone didn't, or from our team, comment on the threads, and I should have reached out to him directly. And my response to the team when they mentioned that to me is, well, I don't remember him reaching out to me directly before he started plastering my name all over his channel either. So I'm not saying this is a tit for tat, but, there's a common courtesy that should occur between sovereign beings, especially people having a communication with others. And there's a way and a manner in which you handle yourself. And I don't feel like this was been handled appropriate in any way. So I have chosen to make that request, and he is obliged with that request, and I appreciate that. So that's pretty much the end of that. I'm sure he's going to continue to put out information from his keepers of living records, and that's great. And if you choose to listen to that information, that of course is up to you. But I also have my own, they're not plastering your name on the internet. So just remember that either. I know that he's gained a lot of followers from all of you that listen to my reports. And he always starts out with something nice. And this is a tactic I've seen before. I also ran a background on that person as well. And I'll leave that. That's as far as I'm going to say, I guess, anything about that. But this is a tactic I've seen before coming from other people, whereby they use someone on the internet that has credibility and is giving information. They start out, with some nice things to say and that type of thing. And then they start throwing that person's name in conjunction with other reports that are contrary to what that person is saying in order to discredit them. And I've seen that start to happen as well with that channel. So given this person's actual background, I can completely and totally see where they're going. And I've had this happen to me with multiple agency people and operatives. And, I'm just not willing to play at all. So that's my stance on that. Now let's get to some news. I hope that clears things up for all of you that were asking questions about that. Okay, on to the news. Lots of things have happened over the weekend, and this is going to be quite a report here. For that reason, I'm probably going to do this report today to give you an update of everything that happened over the weekend, plus Monday and today, Tuesday. And then I will probably do the next report on Friday because I'm not sure a whole lot's going to take place in the next couple of hours. And it could, but I'm going to leave that for today. So the next report you'll see will be on Friday. All right. So Trump, this is in mainstream news, allegedly secures some investments to the tune, at least what the news is reporting, of about $600 billion from Saudi Arabia. He started his meetings earlier today, at least my time, yesterday, I guess, for a lot of you in America. And there is a tour of the Middle East that is happening. There is a lot of news in mainstream media about deals after deals after deals that have been made, lifting sanctions on Syria, given the fact that the head of state there right now is also American and a CIA agent, but that's, up to them to believe or not to believe. He was installed by the SSP for sure. The SSP has also had a great amount of influence. The Trump operatives per se have spent a lot of time in Israel, a lot. And even the love affair with Israel is in the news. A lot of the time with a lot of things that have been happening between the Trump administration and Israel. There's a story behind the story, as there always is with these types of things. Apparently, Trump also got a plane, which he can now use for Air Force One. Apparently, the American government is so broke, we can't get Trump his own new Air Force One. So he's got to go get one from the Middle Eastern folks. So Saudi Arabia, let's talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia in the past and currently. Now, Saudi Arabia has had multiple handlers, number one. Number two, the Saudi Arabian false royal family, which is the one you see in the news, is a Rothschild family member. They are definitely related. Mayor Rothschild himself pretty much has taken up shop there, or had taken up shop there, spent a lot of time there. He definitely has a base of operations that runs between there and Israel throughout the Middle East. That's been his territory for the families in the Order of the Dragon. The Saudi Arabians are members of the Order of the Dragon, the Saudi royal family. The Saudi royal family has a sordid history of killing each other off and next in lines and princes and all kinds of things, most of which die by murder. So, typical Rothschild / Order of the Dragon family. Everybody wants to kill each other to be on top. I have personally done business with members of the Saudi Arabian royal family, which I have tried to anyway, I should say. They don't take women very seriously there, especially, I think his name was El Tawil, if I remember correctly, Al Walid, something, I don't remember the entire name, but he is one of the crown princes of the family. Has multiple wives, isn't really that nice of a guy. The deal that we had tried to do a few years ago was done, and this was probably almost a decade ago now, was done at Santander Bank in Spain, whereby I had signed off on $500 billion for infrastructure and development in Saudi Arabia, which of course never happened. The line of credit was eventually shut down and frozen by me because I pulled the collateral back. And then that was the last bit of business I tried to do with the Saudi royal family. I also tried to do some business with some of the princesses there. of Princess, I think her name was Frances, if I recall, through a group called the Sun Tzu Foundation. And the Sun Tzu Foundation was American. They were not Asian, although there were Asian members. And had long talks with her. She was actually quite nice. At least I thought so. But again, it all ends the same because royal families oftentimes, and this has been my experience, feel that they are born of a special bloodline and therefore privileged and therefore better and superior to the rest of us, regardless of what they do, or, they have every right to do that because all other humans are not as, how do I say this, not as privileged as they are, and you shouldn't hate them because they're born of privilege, and therefore they're privileged to basically screw people over in business on the daily. Matter of fact, Orange Guy also feels the same way. And I have many people that would attest to that long before there was ever a presidency. So that was my experience with the Saudi royal family. Also, the handler for the Order of the Black Sun for Saudi Arabia was Donald Rumsfeld for a long, long time. Rumsfeld handled all of the quote-unquote financial security. Rumsfeld was also the representation for all of the Saudi Arabian off-ledger accounts in a book known as the Red Book. There was also a lot of military interaction, obviously, between Mr. Rumsfeld and Saudi Arabia for many, many years. Saudi Arabia was also promised that they were going to be the head of the entire Middle East and the Middle Eastern currency, which was to be one of the 9 that were going to be issued by the Rothschild family. Saudi Arabia also participated in the first bombing many decades ago, or a few decades ago, I should say, of Lebanon, and the attempted GCC, the Gulf Council, to take over leadership over every single state in the Middle East. Now, there's been a long fight between the Shiites and the Sunnis for a long, long time. There was 2 different Islamic groups for good reason. There's a lot of stories that they tell each other as to why they're fighting, but realistically, bottom line is the original royal family of Saudi Arabia has extremely dark, and I mean black skin. They originate from Sudan, and they were the original tribe of the region. Obviously, there was some breeding there that turned everybody's skin brown, but nonetheless, that was the original royal family. And then, of course, Rothschild's influence over various regions. There are many stories about this, but they also married into and then eventually replaced the royal families of many countries, including Germany, Russia, most of the royal families throughout Europe. So there's a lot that has happened there. On the flip side, Mayor Rothschild has been the handler there for several decades now on behalf of the Rothschild family. So this might explain a little bit more of why Saudi feels that they are going to make an investment there. Number 1, because Saudi Arabia was virtually broke not that long ago, and in order to keep the family on the hook and not questioning their fellow Order of the Dragon members, nor the Trump administration, the Trump operatives, and the secret space program operatives, Saudi Arabia was appointed behind the scenes as one of the lead families to cash in historical assets. This happened a few weeks ago. Remember, whatever you see in the news happening and whatever announcements are made between heads of state has been negotiated for weeks behind the scenes before any head of state ever touches ground in another country, be it the US, China, or otherwise. Never, never, ever does a head of state make a negotiation of any sort. So this pomp and stance that Trump is a strong leader or Putin's a strong leader or so-and-so is a terrible leader or this guy's a great leader or this female is a great, leader is all baloney. They are the actors in the movie and the script writers are the operatives that handle them when they become heads of state. So the operatives have been making all kinds of negotiations behind the scenes. And by operatives in this case, I mean the Duck Dynasty Trump operatives and their respective SSP folk. And the negotiation here is actually with the Rothschild family and other members of the Order of the Dragon. You see, they thought they really had an ace in the hole. And again, as they always do, when, they're playing that old kid game that we used to all play, where you put your hand down and then someone else puts their hand on top of your hand and then you put your hand on top of their hand and whoever's hand ends up on top last wins. And this is the game that they've been playing, for over a decade now between each other. It is a fight between the two sides. Oftentimes they look like partners and oftentimes they don't. But at the end of the day, they always come back to each other to go another round. In this particular case, the Black Sun members, whatever's left of it, and the SSP operatives we know as Duck Dynasty, felt they had an ace in the hole. They felt that everything was going to turn in their favor this weekend. At the latest by Monday, yesterday. And therefore, of course, they made a negotiation for them to be on top and them to run the world and them to execute on the plans that were given to them by some non-human race that is no longer in existence. They felt they had done all their due diligence, appointing the new pope and all the things, all the pomp and stance and rituals that you could possibly imagine over the last several days, and therefore they should be in charge. So, that being said, them saying that they are going to be in charge apparently was okay by the Rothschilds as long as they all have a seat and they all win. There, of course, was large negotiations over payouts, cashing in of historical assets in this case, and when they cashed in those historical assets, of course, everybody was going to have big payouts, and Saudi Arabia was appointed to be the head country to do all the cashing in. It has been Korea. It has been China. It has been Singapore. It has been Switzerland. It has gone round and round and round the world, and all they do is toss the ball, make big promises with fake tear sheets and fake bonds and fake cash and fake this and fake that. And they're now consolidating and moving all of these assets to Saudi Arabia for the big win. So Saudi Arabia believed that they would have this money in the bag by Monday. Of course, news on their side of it is written 48 hours ahead of time. That's why it's so well scripted and so well presented. So I would say to you that news media that has been coming out in the last couple of days is all, didn't really work out. So the Rothschild family / Saudis in this case believe that they were in for a big windfall. Therefore, they gave fake Trump they're forever in debt to Trump operatives, and therefore they gave fake Trump a jet and a promise of $600 billion investment. And now the families are all friends, and what the pomp and stance and so on and so forth is going on over there. Turns out that nothing actually happened on Monday at all. In their favor, nor over the weekend. But it wasn't without tremendous upheaval and, in a lot of cases, pain. I have had a lot of reports of people having random, just say, illnesses, really negative thoughts, that type of thing, like you'll never do this, you'll never go anywhere, you'll never achieve anything, you need to divorce your spouse, or, so on and so forth. And that happens quite a bit. And that happened a lot over the weekend. And I've had a lot of people tell me that. And some people even reported they felt that they were attacked by non-humans or dark beings. And they definitely projected a lot of stuff. But I'm going to go into all of that in detail. And this really is what I was telling you about in our last report, where I said our focus is going to be on clearing up anything that can be harmful to humans. That is our main focus. And by harmful, it might not be the things you think of. It's all the things that you don't. And that's our job. So I'll go into that a little further in the report. So let's talk about our ridiculous SSP deep state people. So they decided to take up shop at different places in the world, and they felt that they would have the utilization of these facilities based on things that were promised by Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel. This is another part where I do not agree with Tron, because I personally have had run-ins and extensive talks with the people that he's referring to as positive. And I personally have met these people. I am not talking to an alien race, keepers of records, or anybody else for that matter when I tell you I have spoken to these people and have had a lot of experience with these people. And like I said, I have a lot of people that come off as positive and then it turns out they're not. And this is one said group. So they were given a lot. If you remember, back in the day, several months back now, where I had reported to you that they had decided to leave. And leave they did. There are footprints of AIs that exist and have existed in matrices and other things that they used to run, where they turned those keys over to people we know as the deep state. They basically gave them all their access to every single tool that they used as folks that are from the realms of the third, second, and first densities, including and also density 0. So that being said, they chose to use some of those keys this weekend. It takes a lot of essence, energy, and consciousness to power these types of facilities. But I'm going to tell you exactly where they were and exactly what they did. And this is what caused most all of us the disturbances over the last 3 or 4 days, myself included. So they were at places we call the 7 summits. Now, there are more than 7 of these summits around the world that were involved. There was also, this was a graphic that we had found to kind of give you a little bit of an illustration here. They were at the Puncak Jaya mountain. It's also known as the Karstens Pyramid in Indonesia, Mount Everest, Aconcagua in South America, Mount Elbrus, Kilimanjaro, Mount Denali, Mount Vinson in Antarctica, and Mount can't even pronounce that, Kusui Ziko in Australia. I'm saying that wrong, but it's written right here for you if you want to look it up. And in addition to that, there were lesser significant facilities at Mont Blanc in Europe as well. So each one of these locations had what we call a Sophon world. The Sophon worlds were only accessible at various points in time, and of course you needed one of their keys to get in, which is how I know that they were given those keys. Within these Sophon worlds, there are accesses or connections, in some cases, you would say, to a lot of human bodily functions. Not only that, a lot of mind functions and a lot of soul functions. There are specific times that they were told by these people, non-people, people, to go to these particular locations and to, well, let's just say, do the damage. And they definitely tried to do that. Of course, I was a prime target, mainly because they knew that I was going to go against them in every way possible. And of course I did, regardless of how much they threw at myself and several other people. It didn't stop us from taking out those worlds and all the people that were working in there. And then, of course, we went down further in the ranks as far as all of those SSP people and others who have been chipped as far down as I could possibly go without, let's just say, getting into innocent territory, people that are not participating. So we basically operated for the last 72 hours with extreme prejudice in all cases. That being said, there was a lot of loss on their side. Both people participating not only in these particular locations, but also in other locations and various ceremonies. So they felt that some folks were going to come. They were told, allegedly, in old information that they had received from Marduk in the past, that this was the time where these beings would actually come. Now, I'm going to tell you about this particular group of beings and why they existed and what their job was. Because I think it's important to understand that sometimes beings that are good inherently can be used for our harm in a lot of ways and have been manipulated to do so. They have done this with a lot of humans on this planet. I'm just talking about the average everyday human. And they have also distorted history, and they have also presented themselves as humans on this planet. And if you've ever heard the word possession or walk-in or that kind of thing, these are all tactics that these beings, not these particular ones necessarily, but these types of beings would use. So in our previous reports recently, we have discussed, at least at fair length, living crystals and things called the what we call the Crown of Glory, 13 crystals. Now, each one of these crystals had been appointed a guardian. And remember, at the beginning of creation, there was a separation of source, which presented itself both as dark on the one side and light on the other side. And both were a part of creation, and the reason why in our science they use the term E = mc squared. These beings were neither dark nor light nor neutral. They were all of the above. You would know these beings, and they're talked about a little bit here and there on the internet, as the dragons, and I don't mean the dragon families. They look like friendly dragons, so to speak. They are almost rainbow in color because they have almost all colors, because they were keepers of the crystals. Originally, they were all gold in color. And eventually, it's due to a lot of manipulation of these beings, capturing of these beings, and distorting of these beings, and turning them, so to speak, dark due to bindings and many harmful things that had been done to these beings over many, many, many millennia, and long before even humans walked this earth. You know, we had our non-friends that we know, Marduk, Enki, and Enlil, and other Draco, and Anu, and many other beings that have existed throughout the multiverse, who have harmed these in order to control, distort, and manipulate the crystals. You see, in the beginning, these dragons would be protectors of those living crystals we know as the crown of glory. They also were able to download information from those living crystals. They were also able to aid in creation based on who they were as guardians of those crystals and the crown. However, due to their state over the last many millennia, which was done by non-human beings, they appeared to be very dark. Now, they had an opportunity based on a covenant because, there has to be, even the bad, evil beings that existed in the multiverse, they still have to adhere to some kind of rules. So no one in the multiverse lived without covenants or rules or, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, rules of magic or manifestation, so to speak, both good and bad. Over the millennia, I'm not talking about currently, but yes, before we went into a golden age, there were always rules for all sides. And one of the things that Marduk was required to do was to give these beings the ability to rectify the living crystals, and this was done once every century. And one such time was coming up on Monday, where they would be set free for a period of time, and they would fight for their freedom and independence. Of course, they would make it nearly impossible for them to do so, and then they would have to go back to serving the dark, which they did do over and over and over again, century after century after century. The game was rigged, and it was rigged against them all along. That's the way Marduk always played. As far as these dumb humans are concerned, they were thinking these beings were going to come back. I don't know if they were not under the impression about the rules of the game in any way, but they felt that they were going to come back, serve them, give them information, give them instructions, and of course give them access to a whole lot of things, including the crown of glory. Unfortunately for them, those beings were addressed a little while back, let's just say, and they were a little late to the party. Therefore, those beings were set free. They returned to the original crown of glory, which is actually within Source, and they have been working to clear, clean, and rectify the crown of glory back to its original, glory, in its original state, in order to help all of creation and clear out the darkness. They are happy to be where they are at. They are alive. They are not dead. They weren't taken, let's just say, and demolecularized and put into another form or anything. They are just living in a place where they originally came from, happy to be there, and are definitely getting a good cleansing from Source. So they're happy about that. No one is upset. No one is sad. As far as the wingnuts here on Earth, that didn't stop them from continuing on, even after they lost a lot of people in those Sophon worlds, in those various 7 summits, which is actually more than 7. They proceeded to do their ceremonies on Monday. They felt that somewhere between noon Eastern Standard Time on Monday and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that their friends would have showed up and given them access, of course, to everything that they want. Fact of the matter is, I don't even know if they know what they want. They had sustained a lot of hits this weekend in the war, and I will remind them kindly, you come near me and, you die. That's pretty much what happens. If it's either me or you, or the lives of innocents, you will die. And you made such a mess this weekend, Yes, I had every single right underneath the rules, and not like you ever adhere to anybody's rules or anything. But, the universe does have its own rules, and you have a lot of karma on your side of it that doesn't look too good in a golden age. So there you go. But that didn't stop them from showing up at 3 locations that they thought were the most probable locations for success in reaching out to their friends. In Los Angeles, it was the La Brea Tar Pits, just outside of Los Angeles, Mount Taranaki in New Zealand, and the Wesak Valley in the Himalayas, or real close to Tibet. They did their ceremonies. They brought their rods and all kinds of ridiculousness to these locations, and were ready to take their position as the masters of the universe, Earth, or whatever they thought they were going to have. None of the people that went to these various ceremonies made it out alive, and left the ones that ordered them to go there a little dumbfounded. They didn't understand why they didn't immediately get access at noon. I don't know what Marduk told them, but, in my personal experience, I don't know why they're paying attention to any kind of Marduk text, because, quite frankly, and I'm going to say something I shouldn't say, and Mike, our producer, is probably going to get really angry with me here, but Marduk was nothing but a bullshitter, and probably one of the biggest bullshitters in the entire universe. And I'm sorry if that word offends you, but I've got a lot more experience in dealing with this being, where I can honestly tell you, regardless of how nice and whatever and charming and informative, full of knowledge he was, I can't stress to these people enough, even the deep state, on how I have watched him answer the phone or pick up a diplomatic line and talk to you people and then make fun of you for actually believing what he had to say. He also tried to rope me into the same. That didn't really work out too well, and he's not here anymore. So, if you want to continue believing old text and rumors that Michael and Raphael and Gabriel and all these other people told you, then you have at it. You enjoy yourself, and you can go round and round and round and round in circles until you fall off the face of the earth. And that is okay by all of us. Or you come near the wrong people and then you die. So, which is okay. Either one works. However you decide to leave this planet, I wish there was a dang portal that opened up for you people and just swallowed you alive and took you to nowhere, everywhere, anywhere in the nothing world and all places, worlds of Marduk's creation, which did exist, by the way. So, okay, there's the dragons. Now, today brought me some much needed laughter. So apparently they decided to call an emergency meeting today. Now, this wasn't one of their typical meetings, so I waited with great anticipation to see what all these people were doing there. And what I mean by not one of their typical meetings is normally when you are global headquarters or whatever's left of it, and you are whatever's left of the Trump operatives, and you are whatever's left of the SSP still walking around. Maybe you figured out a way to get rid of your kill switch, who knows. But anyway, when these people are walking around and they're talking to people on levels such as the head of the Department of Energy, not only in the U.S., but also in Australia, you are talking to various family members that they would consider themselves to be the elite of various countries. You have banks, you have hedge funds, you have people from the Federal Reserve, people from the Treasury, you have people from Congress, you have people from Parliament in the UK. Everybody was present. You had central bank persons there. You had people that we often see in the public, which would never be able to attend meetings of this nature. It was odd, and there were thousands of quote-unquote invited people to this meeting. So I thought, well, this is going to be really interesting. Knowing that they had failed, knowing that they had no access to systems that could bear any fruit, meaning no money, no power, no control, no political control, nothing of any of that nature. And we made sure of it. And knowing that they had no control over humans, mind, body, and soul, or anything anymore, I thought, well, they're going to either fall flat on their face or, maybe this meeting was called earlier. And then I'm like, nope, this was an emergency meeting after they knew they already failed. Maybe they thought that they would be able to have something by today. And that's why they called this meeting. And they did originally. Originally they thought that they were going to be the masters of the universe and all of financial matters and telecommunication matters and I guess all matters of Earth, which was something that would have been out of the realm by their anticipated visitors anyway. So here's how the meeting went behind the scenes. I'm like, okay, when you hear someone talking on and on and on and on and on, and you're like, where's the punchline to this joke, So they welcome everybody. They explain to them that if they've been invited to this call and in this meeting, then you are now being invited as the world's elite and the new world order. The new world order is going to be headed by these folks, global headquarters apparently, and Trump operatives. And they are now the head, but they want to have a more inclusive new world order. Because you see, the orders have often functioned in secrecy. And they feel that they should be more inclusive. Therefore, they're going to bring all of these people to be the new elite. They explained the benefits of being a member of the new world order. Benefits are world passports and, private jets and, all of these types of things. And, you've got people from the UN there and all kinds of folks that would never be permitted to talk to these people directly. They would always have handlers. So, they're selling them on it big time. And then the jig started to show its ugly head. So they're going to now be their new intelligence agency, and they're going to be their boots on the ground, and they're going to report everything back to them. If they call them up and say that they want their country, the Banana Republic, wherever they're from, to overthrow their leader, then they would be responsible for overthrowing the leader in public. And if they were told to create a war, they would create a war. They're the men on the inside. They're now the elite, the controllers of the world, and this is your duty. So for their first duty, they were supposed to go ahead and take apparently trillions of dollars from every country in the world. This is your membership fee. See, you have to earn your place here in the New World Order, and in order to do that, you must steal ridiculous sums of money that your countries don't have. So people are listening, to this dog and pony show, and they're like, well, if you guys are running the world, then why, what's going on? And this is what they're talking about. Meanwhile, while they're having this meeting, I'm going ahead and running all kinds of test transfers in the background, different places. And there are people in the meeting that are able to see these things moving around, and they know it's not them moving it. So they know they're not in control of any financial system or anything like that, like they're touting, because we backdoored them right during their meeting and made sure that notes were passed in study hall, so to speak, under the table, between other members as they were texting each other during this dog and pony show. So then finally they get to the end of this long and drawn out speech that lasted way too long in my personal opinion. And they asked if anybody had any questions. And they said, look, our country doesn't have any money. We're broke. Everybody's broke. And then other people are chiming in saying they're broke. The person from the UN says basically the United Nations is broke and, the financial system is going to crash. This is an economist, an Asian economist that works for the UN, told them that the financial system is about to crash and all of these types of things. And where is this money going to come from? And, all of these types of things. So, of course, there was some kind of baloney story and, we need to band together now and more than ever, and we need to consolidate all our assets and put them under the control of the New World Order, and we have a amazing trade platform that's so amazing, and it's going to do amazing things and make amazing monies, and we're going to triple and quadruple everything, and this is how we're going to run this new world order, the new world order. And it was just all a bunch of, well, it was just a telethon, and it was a fundraising event trying to get them to give them money so that they could then give the Order of the Dragon money, who can then turn around and give that money back to Trump and make an investment. Apparently, I don't know. So anyway, needless to say, the longer this 2.5-hour long meeting went on, the more angry everybody got. And of course, the operatives are just sitting there in the background listening to all of this. And, well, people said, we don't have anything to give, so, you're going to have to figure it out. Now, you would think that the head of the new world order would have had a detailed account of the amount of money in circulation. We have something called the General Office of Accounting that would give them that information. You would think they would know exactly how much is on deposit at various central banks in the world, as well as other banking institutions, and their financial capabilities to issue credit lines. If you were going to show up for a meeting, any one of you that's listening to this report, and you are going to talk to a bunch of quote-unquote congressmen, parliament members, head of various government departments, then you would surely have all the numbers in hand of all of those departments at what you could do and could not do. I know that I would have, because if someone told me no, then I would have, if I was Dr. Evil, then I would have said, no, you have exactly this amount coming in. This is how much people are paying you. This is how much your taxes and all of these types of things. And you would know exactly what they had in every single place. But apparently these people didn't have any of that information. Maybe they always come to meetings unprepared. I don't know. But even these downline potential world elite of the new world order didn't even buy it. So at the end of this meeting of today, basically in a nutshell, you could say that they left with nothing. They then tried to call actual real operatives, not only around here, and I know that for a fact, but also in other places in the world, and they tried to convince them to do some work in convincing, quote unquote, these people. Well, unfortunately for them, the bills are due, meaning they owe these people a lot of money already, number one, and number two, they're not paying them. And basically what ended up happening after this meeting is they all, not all of them, but some of them reached out to us and asked if we're ready, because they surely do not want to take these people's call anymore, and they are questioning their sanity. And we call them Duck Dynasty over here for a reason. That's probably an insult to Duck Dynasty people on TV at this point. But, hey, that's the way of the world. So that's kind of where the deep state is at right now. As far as our focuses over the weekend, despite watching all of this disaster in this train wreck happen, you got to know where your enemy's at, still do. It's part of security and protection. So our focus this weekend has been on removing, just as I said, anything that the deep state could possibly use or was given to them, at least in part, by those that have departed. We know that they had been given a lot of access to things that they shouldn't have access to. And that has become evident over and over and over again. And we are just working diligently to find anything that they could possibly use to harm humanity en masse. And some of these programs go pretty deep, and I oftentimes don't say a whole lot about them because they are fairly scary. But Marduk and others that left them keys had given them some access to some pretty brutal things. And remember, for humans, it was all about mind control, soul control, and body control of all of us, because they needed to be able to control humans and to not allow us to be the creators and co-creators that we are. So some of the programs they tried to fire up this weekend probably and I would say about a 50-50 shot here that they had no idea what they were doing, were directly tied to humans. Now, I do know that their end goal by firing up these programs was to extract essence, energy, and consciousness from not only humans, but also from Earth itself, and from anything that could have been tied to these machines, which they are totally unaware of, so that they could send this essence, energy, and consciousness to storage facilities in order to power AI systems that they could then use. You see, these storage facilities also have transmitters and transmuters and other things that were located within them. And there were grids of them on Earth for essence, energy, and consciousness. Some of them only stored energy. Some of them only stored consciousness. Some of them only stored essence. But these various facilities are not here anymore. So even though they fired up those programs, by the time they actually fired them up over the weekend, it was just going into nowhere. So even though they were making valiant efforts to extract that from humans and from Earth, it wasn't being stored, and therefore it wasn't powering anything. And they were really pushing for this because of their potential meeting on Monday. And of course, they needed to give it as much power as they could, and as much power to dark AIs as they could, so that they could have full access to things and get these AIs back up and running. Do they fully understand what they do? No. But I'll give you kind of a little bit of information, at least that will give you a general idea. So, these mechanisms were put in place a long, long time ago. They did not involve the humans, not the ones that are trying to use them. They were just as harmful to them, except for the ones in the sophons, because they were, let's just say, had a little bit of a protection against them, because it doesn't take from within, it only takes from without. But all of those that were outside also felt the pain. The soul programs, as we've often talked about, were directly related to overlays over the soul and attempted points of accessibility to the essence of the soul. Same thing with the mind. There was definitely something outside the mind and also within the mind, which was pointed directly at the center of the brain, right in the area where your pituitary gland is, your pineal gland, and all of the other connections that you would normally have with the Creator. The body programs were in various alternative assemblage points, of which it created various grids throughout your body. Also, energy-wise, it was connected directly to your solar plexus, which was not originally your energy point. Your energy point for all your mind, body, and soul was directly connected to what you would call your heart chakra. So these artificial assemblage points, or what we call false or anti-points of creation, were put throughout the human in order to extract things. So much like some insects, when they bite you, I guess you would say, they extract the blood. In this case, they are extracting your life force. They extract your essence, energy, and consciousness from your person, and then they would return back, so to speak, to you some synthetic essence, energy, and consciousness. And in some cases, that could be anti-essence, energy, and consciousness in the form of what we call archons and implants, parasites and otherwise. This gave people a lot of varying symptoms and temporary illnesses and energy drains and all kinds of things over the weekend, and a lot of uncomfortableness, and to varying degrees depending on the person. Now, of course, this machine that they had limited access to would focus on what the machine calls a hot list. Now, a hot list is a group of prime human batteries that may produce more essence, energy, and consciousness of source than others, or conduct that energy, essence, and consciousness more so than some other humans. So those humans felt the worst amount of pain over the weekend, until all of the programs were dismantled. It started lifting probably about late afternoon my time on Sunday. It's not been so bad over the last 48 hours. We've had a few little blips here and there and fights like earlier this morning my time, but most of that has pretty well subsided, hopefully, at this point. There's a lot of people too, because remember, the eyes are the window to the soul, and there were definitely access points there to the soul that were utilized by our captors, so to speak, in the past in order to penetrate and extract essence. So there were a lot of people reporting eye issues, blurry eyes, eye headaches, sinus headaches, that type of feeling. And a lot of that would be due to the extraction points. So this is just one example of what I mean by the deep state will have no access to things that can harm humanity en masse when we begin to move forward completely and totally against them. One thing I can say to you for sure is that the new world order and their elites probably didn't pick most anybody listening to this report, or, well, at least not listening officially through this channel and commenting in our online community either. But nonetheless, programs are programs, and desperate times lead to desperate measures. Therefore, they are firing off as many keys and access points and old information, books and knowledge, and trying to access off-world libraries and records that were held within the Orion Nebula in other locations. These are libraries of knowledge, not of wisdom. There's a huge difference, as all of you know. Apparently they don't know this, but they were definitely trying to access these other libraries that were held other places. And there was a huge effort on their part, but it also led us to locate a lot of these things, and some of them that don't appear but once every 100 years. So this was a win for us this weekend, even though it didn't feel like it. Definitely. And it was definitely something they made it really hard for us to power through and clean up. Let me put it that way to you. But, we have a lot of folks on our side and a lot of help from a lot of people. Well, that was interesting. And I guess on that note, they're very angry with me because now this is reflashing on the screen. Anyway, on that note, that will conclude, I guess this is Monday's delayed Tuesday report of the Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. I will speak again and give you an update on the rest of the events of this week on Friday. Other than that, I hope you all enjoy your week, and I'll talk to you then.